Good evening, everyone. It is February 27th, 2023, which is hard for me to personally believe that we're at the end of February. I'm listening to sleet outside of my window, so winter has not yet quite left us. And we are here for today's meeting of our School District of Springfield Township Board of School Directors Academic Affairs Committee meeting. I welcome you to this evening's meeting. We are expecting a few other members to join our panel as the night goes on, but given everyone's time, I wanted to go ahead and get started. I hope that that's agreeable to everybody. Today we have a very full agenda. I'm always annually excited to bring to you our high school program of studies. It is a new and improved guide. So Dr. Scragen and Dr. Rittenhouse are here, and they're going to talk about exciting changes that they've made to the document itself and its rollout to the student body and families. It wouldn't be spring without new course proposals for the high school. So we've got two new courses, one expanded course and a change of sequencing to talk with you about today. And then the majority of our meeting, it's that time of the year where we want to bring you a mid-year update on our performance following our winter benchmark testing that was completed. And then you'll remember that in the fall, we presented to our Board of School Directors an action plan for each school building after looking at the data from the fall and the summer. And we want to give you an update on where we are and how we're progressing towards those action plans. That concludes sort of our major agenda items that we're bringing forward. Obviously, we'll take any questions or concerns from all of you and then opening it up to public comment. Are we okay to get started with our first agenda item? Fabulous. Program of studies. Dr. Scragen, Dr. Rittenhouse, would you like to get started?
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Dr. Zig.
No, go ahead. You first, Dr. Rittenhouse. Go ahead.
So our program of studies, one thing is we wanted to make it more user-friendly and quite frankly, less on words and verbiage and more on sequencing, what the course can mean for a student's future and just making it kind of visually more friendly. And I think we accomplished that, particularly with the new sporty, when you hit the arrow at the bottom, it makes the page turn and like a regular book, but before it just had kind of a heavy kind of feel to it. It's a dynamic version versus the PDF version. And we really, one thing we learned from was we looked at other schools, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Z, Mr. LaRocco, myself, all the department leadership, department heads and coordinators. We looked at programs of studies and booklets from other schools and really used some of the things they did well. And we also added faculty names in there this year, which I thought was a nice touch. Dr. Z, you want to add something?
Oh, as Dr. Johnson is showing the dynamic program of studies, you'll also notice there's more than just the curriculum in terms of the coursework. There's pathways, there's bell schedules, faculty names, there's senior experience, there's information about exams. So it really is a lot more than it was before. But we were able to kind of take a look at the coursework and maybe shrink that down so that it really becomes a true program of study and not just a course guidebook, so to speak. We still have the profile of the graduate in there for everybody to kind of see what we're aiming for, as well as two worksheets available for students. They can print those off and use those to make their plans for 4 years or for 1 year. There's more information about Keystones and the multiple pathways for students to show that they've met the graduation requirement for Keystones. So I hate to sound cliche, but it is new and improved, and we're very excited about it when we release it to the general public.
And like I said, a big shout out to the department leadership, the department heads and coordinators who did a lot of the editing. And then Dr. J took it into her laboratory and formatted it and gave it back to us 3-4 times. But I think we've probably seen 3 or 4 drafts. We're really proud of of the new program. I think it looks really great, and it has just a better feel.
And I think just to be clear is that as our members of our academic affairs team is well aware, we've worked really hard to integrate our equity work and making sure that we're creating a transparent plan and understanding of what's happening behind the doors of our schools for all our families, not just those who have had 3 or 4 students go through our school district and therefore they know what's expected, but really trying to unpack and uncover. And while we've made exponential growth this year, and we're really excited about the material, we have plans already for how we're going to add some more things next year. So we certainly see this as a work in progress each year. But overall, we thought you would enjoy seeing its new version. And then most importantly, gentlemen, will you talk about sort of, you're going to share it, how you're going to roll it out with students and families, which is a little different than what's happened before.
Do you want to begin? You can take the lead here.
Sure. So as we know, for those of you that know Springfield Township High School, we have something called March Madness, which centers around basketball this Friday, but it's also going to be March Madness when it comes to the curriculum, because with our lunch and learn schedule, what we'd like to do is to be able to hold class meetings sponsored by our department leadership to explain about the coursework that students should be taking through their 4 years here at the high school. So that's one thing that we're going to be looking forward to is how we share that information with students. We will also have this is how you go into the Home Access Center and sign up for your coursework. So that's not going to change. We will also be going down to the middle school, I do believe, I want to say March 23rd. Down to the middle school where we'll.
I think that's the day.
Yeah, March 23rd.
Yeah, March 23rd. Thank you,
Yep.
Mr. Fuller. I had to do the math in my head on the dates. And we'll be sharing that with the 8th graders and how to sign up with TOC as well. We are currently looking at getting some printed copies so that our 8th grade families could have a hard copy and the electronic copy as well. Dr. Ritt, would you like to take over curriculum night and the course recommendation process? You have to unmute yourself though.
Curriculum night update. Will be different meeting areas. We somewhat successfully used to have one podium, one mic, and 13 curricular souls come to the microphone and give you what I asked for would be 5 minutes, but sometimes it was a little longer than that. And it was I don't think it was very family friendly. So now we don't have that piece. We have different aids for you to visit: social studies room, the English room, the world language room, and a couple of things this year. When we're going to have a room with a panel of students that can talk about experiences, curricular. It's going to have students in the room with the curriculum leadership leaders. So there'll be your juniors and seniors that have taken a lot of science at the high school and can talk and can talk to that. So it also is it's a great time for all families, but particularly 8th into 9th grade, for those 8th grade families to kind of hear what's going on with the curriculum. And Eastern is there, Montgomery County is there. Scott, is any of our dual enrollment universities there too? I don't know. I don't think so.
At this point, it's just Montgomery County Community College will be there.
You want to talk about course recommendation?
Sure. In the past, the way that course recommendations worked was that teachers would have conversations with students and make recommendations as to what they felt they should take in the next sequence for courses. This year, we opened it up. We would like to have students have those conversations with their parents, but also have conversations with their teachers. And teachers are putting kind of some benchmark of this is where we think you might want to go, but we are hoping that those conversations will be happening during this process with families so that the students can truly take the course that they feel prepared for and one that they would really like. So it's not just the teacher saying this is what you should do. We're trying to open up more of a conversation between the teachers, students, families, and counselors as well.
Again, I think just to summarize for the members of our committee is understanding that we took very seriously the feedback we've heard from students that How do they know what they don't know? How do they know that they could take an honors class or an AP class and what might be a good fit for them? And so every day in this planning process, we've been trying to poke at that feedback and making sure that students are the ones holding sort of the responsibility, but also the opportunity to really take a chance and stretch themselves, maybe not in all courses, because I think we also want to have a discussion for those students who are choosing to take 3 AP courses in the same year. There's a cost to that as well. And we want to make sure that they're not just taking it to take it, and that we've provided them some options of thinking about their holistic self and their holistic high school experience in preparation for whatever they're going to do after high school. Any questions or comments for our high school team? Mrs. Green? You're muted.
Thank you. So sorry for being muted. I just wanted to add, I see that you're sharing the information with students in grade level meetings. Because we're doing so much work with the equity and so forth, would it be good just to have a brief presentation to MPA or our parent organization so that parents are aware that it exists? And it would be just a reach out to make sure that information is out there. Maybe not as comprehensive as you might do at a full, curriculum night, but possibly some type of information going to MPA, which has a growing parent participation.
It's a great idea. Yeah, we could definitely do that. Yeah, that's a wonderful idea.
Yes, and Dr. Rittenhouse, I know you already present to the STS HSP every month anyway. There's an opportunity to add that in your upcoming report.
Yeah, for both ST, HSP and MPA from STHS.
That's a lot of letters.
Yeah, that's 13. That's 12, right? 12 letters. So, and I just sent a note. My internet's not great. I may have to move around a little bit here. That's why I usually stay at school. So
all right. We'll be here. Isha, I see you raising your hand.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, how often do you think these grade level meetings would be?
I think, go ahead, Dr. Z.
So, in the most extensive model we were thinking about, 9th one day, 10th another day, and try to hit the major cores. So it'd almost be like once a week for the grade level meetings. That's what's in our mind. But then, of course, we need to kind of see what's going on, because as we know, with the first week of March, there's March Madness on Friday. So we need to be careful on how we select and utilize our time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Isha. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, so as I said, we have new course proposals. Dr. Scraggin, you want to talk about our 2 new proposed math courses?
Certainly, we'll do that.
Do you want me to click on that document, or you just want to talk?
I can have the document. I'm on camera, but I also have that document to talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
So I'm going to first start with the elective, the math elective that was created. It's called Industrial and 3D Design. The idea is to mix art and math with graphic design for students who would like to take that challenge. Typically, the students are going to learn principles of graphics, industrial and architectural design with the programs they're going to be using from Google. Students are going to apply these principles with problem-solving strategies to develop creative solutions to real-world problems. While this course is grounded in mathematics, this comprehensive math elective will also develop and rely heavily on communication skills, artistic representation, and productive collaboration. So there's going to be a lot of work. It's not necessarily architectural design per se, but it can be for students who wish to go that route with utilization of the program. The idea is to use computers that are going to be connected to our 3D printers, which we just heard there's some more that were signed up, hooked up to the library today. And that students can actually design and then actually print off their designs and take a close look at that as they're working on the mathematics with regards to their architectural and non-architectural designs.
Thanks, Dr. Z. Any questions on our proposed industrial and 3D course?
And I'll just add in there too, we've purchased additional computers for other departments, and we'll be able to use that computer lab. That's usually the obstacle for this type of course, which, a lot of money for 25 computers. We have those computers in place, and 3D printer prices have come down a great deal. They used to be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and they're now, and you can get a solid 3D printer for $400 or $500 at this point. I mean, they're 20% of what they were 5 years ago. So we're excited for the course.
Pending approval from this group of people to continue with our planning, we would include it in the course guide and then see if because it's an elective, students would have the opportunity to roster for it. So we would run it only in the event that we have students who are interested in taking it. But we're increasingly hearing that there are students who would like options beyond Algebra 2 that are not calculus. They're looking for other ways in which to accrue their math credit. Is that fairly, did I say that appropriately, Dr. Z? So
You did, Dr. J. Absolutely.
The math department is working hard, including this year, as you recall, that we approved that business math course, really trying to find courses for our upperclassmen, upper class students, so that they have options beyond sort of the strict pathway to calculus. Any other questions about that course? Okay. AP pre-calc, Dr. Z.
Thank you, Muchley. So the AP College Board actually opened up a pre-calculus AP course with an AP exam at the end. And what we're going to do is we would be targeting the population of students who currently would be going into Trig pre-calc. This would be an opportunity for them to take an AP course. They'll explore everyday situations and phenomena using mathematical tools and lenses. Through regular practice, students build deep mastery of modeling and functions, and they're going to examine scenarios through multiple representations. They're going to learn how to observe, explore, and build mathematical meaning from dynamic systems, an important practice for thriving in an ever-changing world. Students are going to study each function type through their graphical, numerical, verbal, and analytical representations and their applications in a variety of contexts. Students apply their understanding of functions by constructing and validating appropriate function models for scenarios, set of conditions, and data sets, thereby gaining a deeper understanding of the nature and behavior of each function type as it applies to calculus.
It's like you rehearsed that. Excellent job. So one of the things that we were also approached by the College Board as a group of educators in Montgomery County with opportunities to expand our AP offerings, and this is one of several that were brought forward to us as a course that may ignite options for students who have historically not participated in taking AP courses. So the thought is that this would allow some students who had not taken other AP courses to earn AP credit and experience a college-like course, and that not every college offers a pre-calculus course, but those that do are likely to accept this or consider this and the results of this course and exam towards that college credit. Additionally, in my opinion, the big selling point is for the long-serving members of this committee will recall that we recently purchased brand new textbooks for pre-calculus. So I was personally apprehensive about the idea of adding a new course when we just bought new books. But fortunately, the College Board had worked to use standing current textbooks. So our current textbooks that we have for pre-calc are applicable in this course. It does not result in any additional needs for those kinds of resources. Dr. Rittenhouse, Dr. Scragan, did I get all that correct in my briefing?
Was my first question. What about the textbooks? The $40 textbooks are now $150. So, so when you start to multiply by 20 and 30, it can be a lot. So yeah, the books are in place. And like I said, for both courses, the budgetary imprint is kind of minimal. For both courses, which is exciting.
Members of the committee, any questions for Dr. Scragan, Dr. Rittenhouse, or myself? From your perspective, are we okay to proceed with continuing to develop those courses and offer them in the upcoming curriculum guide? Okay. Dr. Yannicka, do we have anything additional from that? Does that require a motion to the board?
No, if this committee has approved it, then we are good to go to add them to the curriculum guide.
Great. All right, fantastic. Thanks so much. Those are the two new courses. I feel like I come to you around social studies every time around this time of the year since I've been in the role to talk to you about sort of us thinking and rethinking our social studies sequence. And so I'm going to remind you, for people who've served in this committee for quite some time, that when Dr. Yannicka was the assistant superintendent, we proposed a rollout plan in which we were moving world history to the middle school and US history to the high school. And in the senior year of our students, they would take a half credit civics course as required under the law. And that plan has been in progress since that time. However, in meeting with the social studies department and in recognition of the current landscape in which we live, there is a real concern that we're not bridging world history and US history early enough for students to navigate these contemporary events. And that the way in which civil discourse and understanding the government and the impact of the decisions that they make, the social studies department has come forward and made a recommendation to take civics from a half credit course to a full credit course and offer that course as the 9th grade entry into social studies at the high school, and move back US history 1 and 2 into the 10th and 11th grade years as it had been before. And, or as we had recommended it at one time. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about this evening. Dr. Scragan and Dr. Rittenhouse and I have had numerous meetings with the social studies department to try to figure out the best way to do this. They are really looking to create an action-based course where they can really set some expectations with the students of their members as of their civic responsibility as citizens, coming into the high school and navigating that. So Dr. Scragan, would you like to add anything else from our conversations with the social studies department and their recommendation?
No, I think you did a very nice job when they talked about really creating more of a dynamic course where students can gain skills over time, project-based things that you couldn't necessarily get with a half credit course. There wasn't enough time, and they realized they could expand it, and thought not only incorporating the civics from a perspective of this is our American government, these are the 3 branches, this is how bills pass, things of that nature, but also incorporate what is the civics of a Spartan at the high school. So what are your responsibilities for civic engagement within a class, during lunch and learn, on the bus, at a basketball game, or those types of things. So they're really spinning this in a much more they're thinking locally and going globally, or thinking globally and going locally with it. So,
Dr. Ritt, anything to add?
I think that kind of action-based, more of approach versus the civics that we all may have remembered, and that's being, looking to be what does it mean to be a Spartan? What does it mean to be a community member? What does it mean to be a citizen in our country? As opposed to some of kind of this, like I said, the civics we remember from 20 or 30 years ago. I know there's some excitement about how to approach that. I think it'll be a very cool course.
What we decided, without causing undue stress to our students, was that students who entered, much like they would in a college, where the course, when you entered the high school, you'd follow that same sequence. The only change will be to the incoming 9th graders. Everyone else will finish the sequence of which they had already begun. So our current 9th graders are taking US 1. Next year, when they are in the 10th grade, they will take US 2. They will then take sort of an elective and their civics course and global studies as they move their way through. But our incoming 9th graders would start next year with a civics course. And so we were seeking approval from this group that you were comfortable with that change in sequencing. Any concerns? No? Okay. And so that we wrap those 2 agenda items together, the course sequence would shift, but with the expansion of civics from a half credit to a full credit. And our social studies department has been hard at work mapping out for us what a full semester of civics will look like. So they spent a professional development day a week ago, 2 weeks ago. The time is going by so quickly, on the 16th, working on that very thing. So we look forward to bringing that information back soon. High school team, anything else on the course selection guide, new offerings, course sequences? Did we get it all? Isha?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, I've been hearing some things about sort of, I guess, restrictions to like which AP classes you can take, like, as like for your grade. For example, sophomores can only take AP, or AP Lang can only be taken sophomore year. So is that the case with any other types of social studies like APs, such as AP US History?
Dr. Scragan?
Isha, I have not heard anything like that. And this is, of course, good to hear that that's out there. That is not necessarily the case. We would like to have conversations with students in their AP course loads. There are students who can handle 2 APs at a time when they're a sophomore, others cannot. And so I think we need to talk to individuals about that. But as far as you're currently in 10th grade, so next year the regular sequence of courses would be available for you, whether they're AP or honors or academic.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good question. It's come up a couple of times in recent sort of years, just sort of how to navigate that. So I think one of the things we're looking to do is create more clear on-ramps about sort of where those courses fit, and so that students are not taking redundancy in their coursework. I think that's the greatest concern, is that if you take a push that is the same course content as an US 2. So we wouldn't necessarily want a student to take both of those courses because it might be redundant content or material, if I'm not mistaken. So some of them are mapped out just based on when they normally take them, not that you couldn't take it somewhere else, but also making sure that there's not redundancy.
Yeah, it's a recommended sequence, but it's a great comment. It's a great comment. So
great.
Okay, thank you.
I know you all have been waiting patiently for our mid-year data analysis and review, so we want to make sure we have adequate time. I've brought all our principals this evening to have a conversation. And as we did in the fall, I'm just reminding you that I don't have tons of new information for us to bring forward. We just had our winter benchmarks. We did have our fall semester keystones were taken at the high school, but those results are not back yet. Pennsylvania Department of Education will issue them sometime this spring, but I don't know when. So when they come back, we'll share the results with you. So really what we have for you is our universal screeners that we use in grades K through 9. We've added some measures at Enfield, which I'll talk to you about in a second. And then we brought you the PSAT results because we've been asked a few times about that. And so those results are in. So Dr. Rittenhouse and I will review those with you as well. Okay. Here we go. As I mentioned to you, Dr. Markle is not able to be with us this evening, and so I'm representing her in this presentation. And so this was her action plan that she shared with you in the fall. We wanted to make sure that we provided you with an update on sort of how things have been going at Enfield. In this slide, I want you to see that this is our Acadians testing, which I remind you that at Enfield, we give to every kindergarten, first and second grader. We give it 3 times a year, and it is one-on-one with a student. And you'll see that sort of our results are moving along, and it helps us to determine what we use it for is to help determine the skills that to target for instructional support. In kindergarten and second grade, we saw a nice increase from the fall scores, and more students met or exceeded their benchmark, which is exactly what we were looking for. First grade was a little off from where we anticipated. They saw a slight decrease in the number of students meeting the benchmark. However, this test does sometimes have that happen because what happens in the winter of first grade, by the spring of first grade, we often see that leap happen later in the school year. And so teachers are putting some adjustments in place into their instruction to address sort of what they found in those data. In STAR Early Literacy, which is taken by kindergarten and first grade students, that assesses sort of their early literacy and their numeracy skills. We use this to take a look at their overall generalized reading abilities, and we compare those scores to their Acadian score and their classroom tests. So we use those 3 buckets of results and then obviously teacher observation to get a sense of how students are doing in their reading development. Overall, kindergarten and first grade experienced positive movement and exceeding the benchmark. So we're feeling good about where that's coming in. In second grade, as we have in the past, we administer the STAR 360, which takes a look at literacy and math skills. And again, we saw nice increases from fall to spring, from fall to winter. I'm ready for spring. From fall to winter in STAR reading, where we went from 72% of the students meeting their benchmark to 79. And STAR math went from 75% of the students to 86% of our students. I'm going to remind you that we had this discussion before, that we only were able to measure mathematics performance for second graders, and that one of our struggles and action items was really trying to find a way to measure mathematics performance for all students at Enfield and not wait until we could get that, other than chapter tests, what else could we do? The opportunity presented itself this year, and we were able to work with our data warehousing solution, Linkit, has a benchmark assessment that is aligned to the state standards and the state performance tests. And so we administered that for the first time to our kindergarten, first and second grade students, and saw that 66% of the students in kindergarten were meeting at or above the benchmark in the winter, 72% of the students in mathematics, and 73% in second grade. So we felt really positive about that measure, and our math specialist worked with the classroom teachers to take a look at overall how they were doing, and then they compare their measures to the end of the year expectations. So this is the mid-year point towards end of year expectations. And so that was an important component. Dr. Markle shared with us an update also in her early literacy. They continue to practice those words in isolation, but also focusing on comprehension. And I remember that we talked about this in the fall, how important that balance of both pieces is to successful or creating successful readers. We did our mid-year assessments. They've had their data meetings. That was held on January 27th at our professional development day, which I think we talked about last month. They put new reading and math interventions for those who needed it in place, utilizing our reading specialists, math specialists, and our reading support aides. They continue to use their new resource, Geodes, which we approved last year. Again, remembering that that's connecting those direct phonics skills into a comprehensible text so that they are able to practice their skills in real time. They've worked on content-focused grade level meetings. So we talked about the concern that we had ongoing planning and support for all of our faculty. And Dr. Markle has created a way to bring specialists to her team meetings with regularity to inform each month. The reading specialists come, and then the math specialists come, and then the specialists come, so that the teachers are working each week in a structured way to formulate instructional planning for students. And ultimately, our big success in this winter time was identifying a math universal screener and taking a look at how those results compared to what they're seeing in the classroom, so that we can continue to make sure we're identifying student need early and rectifying it where possible and feasible. Questions around Enfield's performance? All right. That leads us to Erdenheim Elementary. Dr. McLaurin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening once again, everybody. So where we started in the fall, we shared with you some of the areas that we really wanted to target to grow this year. And so we wanted to take a closer look at how our students were performing within our STAR assessments, our classroom assessments, in correlation to the PSSA. And we've been doing a lot of good work in those particular areas. And so we've been looking at curriculum-based assessments, some online assessments, targeting our instructional plans, a huge emphasis on math with the new role of the math coordinator, math specialist in our building has been really powerful for us. And then looking at our instructional practices to make sure that we can really target specific skills that students that we've noticed that need support. And so we're excited about the work we've been doing, and I'm excited to share with you how we've been progressing so far this year. If you take a closer look at our data and our performance, you'll see a continuous theme in each area for each grade level. The orange is our PSSA score, and that refers back to the previous slide of us really trying to dig in and figure out how can we find some stronger correlations between our classroom assessments, our STAR assessments, and our PSSA assessments. But we're excited about the work that we're doing this year. But overall, each grade and each cohort has shown growth from the beginning of the year from where they are now. And so that's something that we're really excited about across the building in each of these particular areas. In math, we're seeing the same growth trend in correlation to our STAR assessments. Obviously, the orange are our PSSA scores, but for all the other colors in blue, we see some really good growth. And while in some grade levels, we might only see that there's 81% proficiency in the fall, and then we move to 82 proficiency in the winter. One of those things I want to be clear about is that while it may only show that we've grown 1%, I'm looking at third grade in particular. What that also means is that our third graders were also able to maintain where they were in the fall, as well as demonstrate growth to be able to remain at that 82%. And we added some students in those percentages. And one of the things that you can't see on these slides, whether it be for math or for ELA, which we are really excited about, when we look at our data, it can break it down into 4 different sections: our at or above students, our intensive students, and our students who have, who really need some intensive support services. We've been able to move students in our lower categories up in terms of proficiency, which is something that we're really excited about for every single grade level. And you can't see that here, but behind the scenes, when you're looking at where we're performing right now for STAR, that 82%, that 83%, and that 86% for math, we've been able to move students in each category to increase that proficiency across each grade level. So where we are now, we are continuing to really look at some of those discrepancies. We've been able to utilize our data warehousing system, Linkit, to take a closer look at our STAR assessments as well as our classroom assessments. We've been able to add in classroom assessments to Linkit, where we can start to really explore in ELA and in math how our students are performing within their classroom assessments, how that talks to STAR, and then really start to take a closer look at what that might mean for the PSSA. This is really for us a digging, an exploration type year, trying to dig in to really find out how we can find some stronger correlations between the different assessments that we have to really give us a really solid projection on how our students might perform in correlation to the PSSA. And so that discrepancy aspect and those curriculum-based assessments we're working in on. And we're also increasing online assessment access for our students so that when they take the PSSA in the spring, they will have had more opportunities to take tests online. We're also looking to target our instructional planning, utilizing our reading specialists. We're really looking at specific areas that we can target for ELA, and with our math specialists, looking at specific areas that we can target for math. And I'll have to tell you, and I know Dr. Marco feels the same way, adding in the math specialist has been a game changer for us. We've been able to, much like we've been able to do for years past, and looking at our ELA data with our reading specialists and being able to identify specific areas to target, for the first time, we've been able to really do that work in math. And we're really excited about being able to dig in and look at the standards where our students are struggling, and then trying to find and working with our math specialists and our classroom teachers to find ways to support our students. And that's happening at both schools. We have small groups running that are focusing in on specific skills to help sharpen our students and make them stronger in the area of math. And so we're excited about that. And then for instructional practices, we're still trying to continue to focus with our team type planning for math and ELA and science and social studies, but we're continuing to do it with the UDL framework and mindset, where we're looking at how can we create more opportunities for our students and eliminate barriers to their success. And every single time I'm sitting in our grade level team meetings, that's always a question that comes up. All right, how can we make sure that our students have access? How can we make sure that we eliminate barriers? And how can we increase choice so that students can be successful on the standard in which they're trying to learn? And we're really excited about the work where we are right now. But as the year goes on, this spring, we're going to look to do the same thing, looking at where we are, measuring our progress, and we're hoping at the end of the year we can come back and we can report out to you, where we are with all of our different action steps that we've shared with you in the fall.
Thanks, Dr. McLaurin. Any questions around elementary, either Enfield or Erdenheim from our committee? All right. Mr. Fuller, you're up.
All right. Hi, everybody. If you remember back in the fall, we noticed some patterns and themes having to do with our data and our performance in both math and ELA. And one of the things that we noticed is that overall, our math scores really remain competitive with those of our neighbors and other middle schools across the county when taken from a holistic point of view. One of the things that our math teachers immediately identified at the beginning of the year this year was that if they had a chance to target small groups of students, if they had a chance to poll students based on their data, they really thought that they could create some rebounds in our math scores fairly quickly. And so we revised, if you remember, we revised our flex programming at the middle school to give more teacher input to the process and allow teachers to group students based on similar need. So later on in this presentation, you're going to see some rebounds and some math scores, at least with regard to STAR, that we think came from some individualized attention for kids. Our ELA scores were problematic last year. They were something that really needed some attention because we saw some drop-offs there. We're going to see some rebounds there too. There's still some work to do. I think a lot of the work we need to do in ELA has to do with aligning what's happening in the classroom really closely to the what's measured on the PSSA. And that's the work of our curriculum team. There's some really, really good momentum behind doing that right now. I see some really energized ELA teachers when they talk about doing that work. So that's important. We noticed the same discrepancy that was noticed at the elementary level, particularly with regard to math, but also in ELA between STAR and PSSA. So we're keeping our eyes still on that. We're looking we've mentioned some of the targeted planning across the curriculum and some individualized grouping that we're looking to do. One other thing that we have been working on is how do we message about the test to our students? I was able to see something in a 7th grade classroom the other day. I had a teacher who had just administered an assessment and was doing some really positive talk with students about being able to see their own growth on this assessment. And I saw some excited, energized kids. So let's get into it here. If we flip the slide, you can see in our 7th and 8th grade, we've seen some rebounds from the fall to the winter. We're headed in the right direction there, particularly with regard to 7th grade. You can see a pretty big jump between our fall to winter STAR assessment scores. 6th grade, we're still seeing sort of a downhill curve, which says to me that we need to do some of the same work that we've done in 7th grade. We've piloted some of what we're doing in 7th grade and produced some results. And so now it's time to take some of those strategies and spread them across grade levels. One of the things that we're doing is in ELA, we asked Dr. Johnston and she agreed to give us access to the Linkit assessment, the benchmark assessment that Linkit does, which is a much more comprehensive test than STAR and also doesn't change its questioning based on your performance. And so you get a really kind of a nice picture of how students are doing against grade level standards. And then you can use that information to norm scoring for what you're doing in class. We also did the TDA, the open response part of that in 7th grade. And we're working on ways to norm scoring so that our teachers can get a better flavor of what's being measured on the PSSA. I think those strategies would really behoove our 6th grade teachers too, in addition to some of those conversations about standards alignment. So we know where we're going with that. We didn't see the right result there in winter. We do sometimes see a much stronger upswing in the spring. And so we'll wait to see what happens there. If we click on to math, you can see math scores have rebounded significantly since the winter. We wonder about the test, the PSSA test always, because that line is always so much lower than some of our progress monitoring stuff. But you can see our students' scores have significantly rebounded since the fall administration of the STAR. We think that that's because we've been able to group students by need and address specific needs with specific students. Our teachers are doing that 3 times a year after the interim progress report in marking periods 1, 2, and 3. We don't regroup after the interim progress report in quarter 4, because by the time we regrouped, the year would be over. So we have one more regrouping to do between now and the PSSA. So just in summary, right, we utilized STAR and this new Linkit assessment in ELA to monitor student progress and train teachers on open-ended scoring. We want to spread some of those strategies from 7th and 8th grade to 6th grade. Our overall math scores remain competitive. We think that's due to small individualized attention for students that we've been able to provide. We have analyzed our fall and winter scores, and one of the things similar to what Dr. McLaurin was saying, you know, even though you see a dip in our ELA scores in 6th grade, when you control for the time of year of the test, right, that test got harder, you still see the line swing up a little bit for our 6th grade students. So they have amassed more skills, even though that number is a little bit lower. Targeted planning, we are using Linkit assessments, and we're norming teacher planning and assessment in ELA. We're going to regroup our students to do some of that work. There's significant interest in a building committee. We dug up some old positive messaging from, it must be 10 years ago, about the PSAT test, and there's significant interest in revitalizing some of that positive messaging in a way that takes advantage of some middle school energy. And so look out for that. There's some teachers with some plans, and we're going to convene a committee to start doing some of that work. So that's what I have here for Springfield Township Middle School. I can answer whatever questions you have. Isha, is that your hand?
This is about like the messaging. I was just wondering if you guys still did pep rallies. I remember when like in 3rd grade, we had a pep rally at the high school. It was like a laser light show. I think that was for the PSSAs.
Yeah.
And that was like really exciting. I think that should be brought back.
That's some of what's on the menu, Isha. We've also talked about, I'm not sure if you were at the middle school for the superhero campaign that happened when the teachers dressed up as superheroes that had to do with like test-taking strategies. So that's on the menu. Mrs. Brady's talking about bringing the band down to play students in during that those days when we have the test, bringing the high school band just to sort of drum up some energy around the test. And then we're looking at like, what can we do in the afternoon after the test, right? As like in like sort of a positive climate kind of enterprise. So that's what we're looking at right now. But yeah, I like the light show thing. I'd like to hear more about that.
Thanks, Mr. Fuller.
Sure.
All right. Are there any questions? Okay. Springfield Township High School, you all are back on the board.
Thank you, everybody. So this was our fall slide. You can see overall performance concern with results of Keystones decreasing, particularly in Algebra 1. Students have reported a lack of awareness and understanding, similar to staff awareness. And you'll see on the winter slide, some of the things that we've done, which I'm very proud of, with discussion of creating smaller testing spaces, building attention and support to the testing process. Act 55 calls that Keystone results will be recorded on each student transcript. And then we have been studying closely our results, and really that's a focus on testing conditions, raising awareness of the test, the importance of the test, the scores on the transcripts, practice tests through Linkit, in-service data days. It's linked to school rankings, small testing sites, and those testing sites having staff, from the subject that a science teacher administers the bio, Keystone, math, English, etc., and then administrative visits to the test sites, to each test site to go over just the importance of the test, particularly the fact that it's linked to rankings and it is going on your transcript. That obviously we want kids to do their very best. So we've gone over, we went over some of these scores before. The 9th grade ELA performance. These are all current 9th graders. Zach and I, actually, Mr. Full and I, before this, talked for probably a half hour about our slides and debriefed, had a phone conversation, as you can, sorry.
I pushed the button, I'm sorry. There you go.
That's okay. I'm like, wow, they went down even more. So not knowing really the reason for the high PSSA and the lower star scores, and certainly there's a discrepancy in those star scores, between 50 and as high as 63. And again, that PSSA in the spring of 2022, they're the same kids who took the STAR in the fall and the STAR in the winter, certainly for additional consideration. Ninth grade math, the opposite, very consistent with the STAR exam. And, we've really made an effort to increase our math scores. And then again, the PSSA is again, those same kids on this third slide, and 70 times 2, 27 and 71 and 68%. And then again, that PSSA score, but this was certainly a source of pride how serious the kids took the STAR and did well on those. And again, for further study, the PSAT performance for the benchmark and the PSAT is given to all juniors. The pre-ACT is given to sophomores. We're very appreciative that the board, the school district pays for the pre-ACT. Every 10th grader takes the pre-ACT. Every 11th grader takes the PSAT, and the PSAT score is based on 2 scores, a reading and writing section, a math section. Benchmark is basically the 75th percentile, and you can see our scores again in ELA and reading very consistent over the last 3 years, and a source of pride, particularly during the pandemic, 2020 and 2021. Administering that PSAT was tough, and the kids did a very nice job. And then you can see that versus the Pennsylvania scores, which have gone down significantly from 77% in 2020 down to 61%. And we've remained consistent, certainly a source of pride. Math, again, looking at those benchmarks, consistent 54, 54, and 55. And again, that state average, that PSAT, the average PSAT score is lower than the ELA score just nationally. So that while those math scores are lower, it's basically because the overall national scores, particularly in the PSAT and math scores. I was reading an interesting article in the New York Times a couple of days ago just about how across the country math scores are down. But you can see the state averages have gone from 52 down to 38, and we've remained steady, 54, 54, and 55. And again, against the for our math benchmark and the PSAT. PSAT meeting both benchmarks, again, self-explanatory, that combines ELA, writing, reading, and math, and again, benchmarks that. And we were a point below in 2020. But again, you look at the state averages, we are well above those state averages, and it certainly shows a consistency with all three of the classes. We eagerly await, our keystone scores. I think we, with fidelity and enthusiasm, really changed our testing conditions at the high school, raised awareness of the test, the importance of the test. Like I said, Dr. Scragan administered the test in the LGI, and then Mr. Larocco and I and the school counselors rotated around, making sure going to the different test sites. I was really proud of the effort that our staff and students made, in particular, when that second bell rang, for lunch and learn at 10:45. It was great to see that we still had 15 or 20 kids who still needed additional time. Dr. Z, can you add any thing in there? You're my keystone guru.
I'm looking forward to the results. We're supposed to get them in March at some point. And I think overall, compared to the previous year, students were taking a lot longer, and I think more serious consideration of the testing situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else, gentlemen, you want to add?
I think that's it. We're excited to see the results.
Definitely. And so I just want to provide sort of some context across the district. I think in general, what I'm hoping that you all saw is our dedication and active steps towards really intentionally peeling apart those the data at performance results, finding steps that need to be taken, and then providing those interventions at the building and district level. Overall, in general, we're seeing our students continue to progress well and rebound from where we had seen a pretty significant dip in some ways. We are seeing those rebounds coming back strong and solid, and faculty are feeling positive about their overall learning experience within the schools. This year, I don't hear as much of who after COVID, ... who after COVID, ... Like, I just feel like in general, we're talking about school in the way we had spoken about school in the past, in terms of student learning and potential and engagement. Certainly, there are still challenges that we confront, but there's definitely a different tone this year than I think we experienced last year. We continue to use these data purposefully in thinking about how we're creating our district and building goals and really using them within our curricular framework, recognizing what is the disconnect between particular results and how might we remedy that, and do we have a curriculum that's well aligned to the Pennsylvania state standards. I want to be really clear, we are not suggesting that we teach to the test. Instead, what I think we know is that if we provide good teaching that's aligned to the state standards, that will allow our students to do well on the test. And that distinction is really important, I think, to our administrative team. And so I want to emphasize it here to anyone watching this video later or to our committee members, is that that is not us teaching to the test or giving up good teaching or important teaching in order to get ready for a test. Instead, the test is our outside feedback on, are we doing the job that we intended to do in preparing our students to be successful after their lives of graduation. And so we look forward to a busy spring season of state testing, including as Dr. Rittenhouse mentioned, the pre-ACT, I think, is in a few weeks, March 17th-ish, if I am right.
I can look it up on my little phone here.
It's March 17th-ish. Close enough for the purpose of this meeting. We'll administer the spring benchmarks following the PSSAs and the Keystones this spring. And certainly we'll be back to provide any updates. Are there any questions, comments, reactions from our Academic Affairs Committee this afternoon on our data performance update?
No, very well communicated, and it was very good also to see the visual. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Dr. Etlin, I would like to open it for any public comment. Should we have any? Is that okay with you?
That is perfectly fine. Yes.
Oopsie, I hit the button too fast. Mr. Wexler, do we have anyone in any questions coming from our attendee?
Seeing none at the moment, attendees, if you would wish to make public comment, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom.
Being none, our next scheduled meeting will be likely at the close or sometime in the middle of April, following our spring break, naturally, on the other side of spring break in preparation for the final push through the year. Dr. Yannicone, any closing comments that you wanted to offer?
Thanks, Dr. Johnson. I just want to thank our building leaders for being here tonight. I know it's a long day and there's some weather out there, so I appreciate that. And I want to also thank our board members for your ongoing support. And Isha, I really appreciate your participation and your feedback tonight. I think it's really helpful to all of our building administrators to have a student voice. So thank you for being here.
Yes, you did, Isha, great job.
Thank you.
We're glad
Thank you,
you're
Isha.
here. Thanks, Dr. Yannicone. As always, I welcome any additional comments or feedback. And if there are questions afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out. Dr. Etlin, I'll get you minutes for the meeting, a draft of those for you in a couple of days.
Thank you very much.
Unless there's anything else, this would conclude our academic affairs meeting this evening. I wish those of you who need to travel, safe travel.
Thank you, everybody. Have a
See you
great
next
night.
time. Thanks very much.